Friday edition of the Call Up here. Aram Layton, Jack McMullen. We're back. It was a little bit of a delay this week traveling through Arizona. I'm excited to kind of talk about some of the live looks that I got. Obviously, we just put out the episode with, it's kind of the first installment of these ridiculous interviews that we were able to get at that eBay Live and Onyx Cards event. That was so much fun. But Jack, we've got some catching up to do. There's a lot of spring training happening. There's a lot of small samples we need to talk about. So we're going to discuss a lot of topics. We also have spring breakout. Finally, the rosters were announced. And of course, for those who may not know, you and I, we're going to be doing the Florida trip, trying to cover, to the vast majority, we're going to miss like one or two of the games just because of overlap. But we'll be out there. We're going to kind of tease that, preview it, but also even the games we're not covering. We want to talk about some of the spring breakout rosters that are, a little extra loaded.
100%. I'm excited for this, and I love that it's getting the pub that it should be getting. And I feel like the announcement came, there was a lot of fanfare, and then it just kind of went away. But MLB Network had a big roster reveal show, and now it, I was even checking ticket prices, and ticket prices are going up and up and up. I saw one, St. Louis, I think it's Astros Cardinals, getting the doors $56 for spring breakout, and there are not many tickets left. So I love that there's intrigue there. I love that we're willing to put minor league baseball on the pedestal that it should be put on.
Yeah, it's funny. I think what it required for it to get pushed and get this kind of press was MLB officials having an idea. So they have this idea of spring breakout. They want the idea to succeed. So now we're seeing a little bit more effort being put in here to promote the minor leagues. Whatever, we'll take what we can get. Sure. But it's funny how when an idea comes from maybe the commissioner's office, we get a little bit more push and a little bit more play here, and all of a sudden, whoa, people are interested in this kind of stuff, huh? Wow, shocking. So look, I'm glad. I'm really excited about it. We're going to do our best to amplify it, cover it, and really hopefully make it something that people are really excited about and continue to be excited about next year, and so on and so forth. And this continues to be something that is really fun and promotes the minor leagues, and maybe gets people a little bit more interested in tuning into these players during the minor league seasons. Like, you don't need to be a freak like us or some of the super fans and some of the prospect heads that listen to this podcast and probably tune into MLB TV on their laptop while they watch the big league game on their TV. But hey, checking in on a minor league game here or there, if you're in town at a local, somewhere where there's a minor league ballpark, going to a ball game, incremental things like that to the casual fan can really make a difference in minor league baseball. So, I'm hoping that this is the first domino of something that can really, spur a lot more growth in the minor leagues, which we continue to see. I mean, we continue to see so much excitement around these young players, especially with how much faster they're climbing through the minors.
100%. We've got some loaded rosters. You want me to run you through kind of my favorite rosters before we get into some of these storylines in big league camp?
Yeah, let's do it.
So one that jumped out, especially pitching-wise, was the Pirates. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into the two big arms names on the Pirates in just a moment. But Paul Skeens is on the spring breakout roster, along with Bubba Chandler, Anthony Solomito. David Matoma, your guy who you highlighted in the top 15, he's going to throw. He's going to throw in Bradenton.
I haven't seen the breakout rosters yet. So that's part of it that I think will actually make this kind of funny because literally they came out right before we were recording this. I was putting out that episode with Rhett Lauder, with Reggie Crawford and Robert Gasser and Betty Montgomery, which check that out if you missed it by chance. But I didn't know Matoma was going to be there. That just made my week. I'm ready to go now.
And we're going to be at that one in Bradenton. We're going to see Pirates O's, and those are the first two rosters that I want to go through. But we are going to see Skeens throw, Bubba throw, Solomito throw, Matoma throw. We're also going to see Tamar Johnson get a couple ABs and Mitch Jepp get a couple of ABs, which will be really interesting.
No Jun Suk Shim.
No Jun Suk Shim. Sung Chae Chang is playing. Okay. So it's going to be awesome. But the opposing team in Bradenton, this lineup, pitching staff leaves something to be desired, understandably so. Cade Povich is the big name on the hill for Baltimore, but no Chase McDermott and a couple other guys. Who we do get, Jackson Holliday, Samuel Basayo, Kobe Mayo, Connor Norby, Enrique Bradfield, Judd Fabian, and Braylon Tavera.
Oh, let's go. Yeah. And that's the cool part about this.
This is exciting.
We're getting the youngsters we're getting the guys maybe even at the complex, or and maybe a little taste of low A that we haven't really gotten to see much yet. Matoma we haven't seen at all. For me, it's I have to
Correct.
dig deep for video and data to go watch, and even then I was like, I'm barely getting anything. So I mean, for fans, Matoma's a fixture of their imagination and whatever they saw from our write-up. So I mean that's awesome. And then I mean, yeah, Tavera's a guy that we saw a little bit stateside, but I'm really eager to see in person. So yeah, you get the big names, but there's some sneaky guys that I think people are going to see them get a swing off, and you're going to be like, whoa, okay, this guy can do something.
So speaking of that point, the other roster that I'm obsessed with is the Seattle Mariners. Seattle is going to run out Harry Ford and Jonathan Clase, understandably so. Cole Young, but how about Colt Emerson, Ty Pete, Johnny Farmelo, and then Lazaro Montes and Felin Celestin. All these guys are going to play. And with all those guys in the lineup, that may be the best lineup that we've got outside of Baltimore.
It's the most intriguing for sure. Yeah, like best in terms of like who would win in a 7-game series.
Like Baltimore's going to win. Baltimore would win this whole thing.
It's the Norfolk Tide, and then like a couple of youngsters that are really fun. But in terms of prospect intrigue, which is what we're here for, I mean, yeah, I'd put that Mariners lineup up there with anybody, because Celestin's another one. Like, he had a hammy, so we didn't really get to see him play at all yet. So it's just another guy that so much hype, top international free agent. I want to see him play. So that's just something I'm excited to be able to do. But Farmelo, a lot of buzz so far this spring after being a first-round pick, in the compensation round. I think he was the comp pick last year. Whatever it was, his first round of comp pick. They had the 3 in a row. Like I always mix up who went.
Yeah, I think it was what, Colt Emerson was the first-round pick. The PPI pick, the prospect promotion, I don't remember what it stands for. They got it because J-Rod won Rookie of the Year. I think that was Ty Pete, and then Farmelo was the comp pick.
Yep. You are correct. So
okay,
that part is interesting too, because these are all guys that we haven't seen much of. Emerson, obviously a little bit more of, but he's put on 20 pounds apparently, like looking more impactful, and he was already hitting the ball pretty hard. So I'm just excited to get a look at some of these guys, especially on the Mariners side that we just haven't seen much of. And then, Lazaro Montes, you got to pull your phone out and get a video, because you never know. You might get a 460-foot bomb.
Right. The Yankees, an interesting one. I think the Hill is fascinating for them. They've got Selvage, Hampton, Warren, Lillane, all throwing. Brock Selvage, Chase Hampton, Will Warren, Henry Lillane, all throwing. And then you've got Spencer Jones. Everson Pereira is on the spring breakout team, even though he's got, 30 plate appearances under his belt in the major league level. But George Lombard, who we saw go yard in big league spring, Lombard is going to be playing along with Rock Riggio. It's a fun Yankee team that we're going to see in Tampa.
Yes, and Farmelo, by the way, was the PPI guy. You could interchange those two, and I'd mix up whatever the pick was. I just know it's the first round and in that range.
And then PPI and comp.
Yeah, it's just good for the Mariners. You're getting them all. And it looks like the early returns are exciting. But on the Yankee side, I just want to see the power forward that is Henry Lillane. Pereira being there is funny. I feel like it's going to be light work for him, a guy that's already produced at the upper levels, produced in AAA, struggled in the big leagues. But you know what? Send all the intrigue over there. Who are you most excited to see on the Yankee side? Like, is there a Brando Maeda there? Do we have Roderick Arias?
I didn't see Maeda or Arias on the roster. I will say I'm fascinated by Lillane, and I'm excited to watch Chase Hampton throw again. I think that Hampton and Warren could be guys that get to New York if anything happens to that front five. We were just having a conversation with the 2 lead editors at Just Baseball, right? Ryan Finkelstein and Leo Morgenstern, about the Yankees, and the front five is awesome, but 6, 7, and 8, they're in San Diego now. It was Brito, it was Vasquez, it was Michael King, it was going to be that 5. But I mean, man, all their depth is gone. So now the depth becomes prospects in Hampton and Warren. And I'm excited to see those guys.
And of course, Drew Thorpe, out of the system too. But I think Hampton being still there is a testament to how high they are on him. And I think that's a big part of it. And I'm excited to see, because that was a guy when we broke down the Yankee system recently. I came away just even more impressed about the fastball quality and some of the characteristics that just make it extremely unique. But I also think, so the Yankees are set to have 3 of MLB Pipeline's top 100 prospects. I'm looking at the Pipeline article. Best way to be able to just crash course.
I saw, by the way, the Spring Breakout, the series, is going to feature 71 of the top 100 prospects on Pipeline. That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm curious if it's more or less for us. It would be fun to do that when we get this 24 list finalized in the coming days. But Arias is out there too. And I'm honestly interested to just see him because, look, we know we can run into baseballs, hit the absolute missile off of Alek Manoah in the complex. Also, dealt with an ankle issue. There's a lot of power. This is a kind of guy where, yes, I've seen some video, I've seen some open side, I've seen things, but I want to just get there in person and see that operation in the box a little bit more, just with my own eyes, because there's a lot of moving parts, but, I want to see if he's one of those guys that can just get away with it because there's some special talent there.
I hear you, man. Couple more teams, 2 more that I want to throw at you. The Reds, not really many hitters that are intriguing. Alfredo Duno is going to be there. I think Collier's on the roster. The thing that jumps out to me, Rhett Lauder, Ty Floyd, Julian Aguilar are all going to throw for Cincinnati. And I find that interesting.
Yeah, especially Rhett. Again, look at yesterday's episode. You can hear Rhett talk about how he's chomping at the bit to you just get on the mound after shutting it down after the collegiate season last year. Obviously, a long one for him. Any looks that we can get at Rhett, in a professional setting is always going to be fun. But Aguilar is a super underrated arm, and then Floyd. I want to see that fluttering fastball. I want to see that high carry heater. And I think he's probably going to throw mostly fastballs, and I think guys are going to be swinging under it. I don't know if they're going to be getting this kind of scouting report of, hey, this is crazy vert. It's crazy whiff. It's Bryce Miller-esque almost sometimes. Like, I have a feeling he's just going to throw fastballs, and guys are going to be like, whoa, was not ready for that.
Right. Last one that I want to throw your way is the Texas Rangers. And there's no Wyatt Langford. There's no Evan Carter. But we are going to get a look at Brock Porter on the mound. We're going to get Jack Leiter on the mound, and Leiter has looked good this spring. Sebastian Walcott's a real person, and he's going to play in the Spring Breakout. Justin Foscue is also going to play, and then Abimelec Ortiz is going to play as well, a guy that was flirting with 30 homers and 100 driven in last year in the Texas system. So Walcott and Ortiz fascinate me, but Brock Porter is the one that fascinates the crap out of me.
Yeah, I just want to get more looks at Porter. That's going to be fun. And just another one of those arms that we haven't seen a ton of. So just any opportunity is going to be exciting. Leiter, I talked about him on the Just Baseball show as a guy that I think has looked good so far this spring. So I'm just eager to see him build on that in a more loose setting because they've been giving him some run. I mean, he threw multiple innings in a big league spring training game already this year. Foscue's been there forever. He's such a good prospect, but he's just so blocked that he's just going to go there and just probably roll out of bed, have a couple knocks, and then go home. Like, it just feels like that's what he does every single day anyways. But Ortiz, another one of those appointment, you got to have your phone ready because it might go 450, and that's what we're here for, right? Is to see some of these guys showcase their talent. I want to see Ortiz just run into one. The power is crazy.
Yeah. And then the Marlins, you got Noble Meyer, Thomas White, and Griffin Conine all playing for the Marlins.
Yeah, Griff got the invite. Also took Pat Corbin deep the other day, which
left on left slider that he sent to the moon.
Only 2 runs that Corbin gave up, but no, I'm excited. Noble, I got to see him on the backfield. It's absolutely spectacular. I talked about him in the first bonus subscription episode about what I saw just with live looks. Command, unbelievable. Watching him in his bullpen go about his business was really impressive. He's a super advanced pitcher. His parents are both brilliant. Apparently he's like a sharp kid, and you could just see it in action. And then you watch him in the backfields and just hitting his spots, mixing it up, mixing in changeups too. We already know the slider's disgusting. I think people are going to see Meyer in this game. He's already generating some buzz. I mean, the Marlins are already really excited about what they're seeing. I talked to the hitters right after they faced it because, Griff got an AB. I talked to Troy Johnston after, and they're like, man, that's good stuff. Like, that is as advertised. Like, they were very impressed by him. I'm eager to see what he does because I think he's gonna turn some heads. And Thomas White, I've been hearing, is running up to the upper 90s potentially. Mostly sitting like 94, 95, but I've heard he's grabbing 7s. So from the left side there, the Marlins could end up having 2 of the best prep, pitching prospects out of that class. And I think we might see that, in this game.
The thing that jumped out to me about Noble Meyer real quick is how thick his lower half was. That was not the case in like any of the draft video that we got. And granted, it was grainy high school footage, but still, man, like he looked thick as a 19-year-old, which is impressive.
And still extremely athletic, which is the wonderful balance you want to have there, right? So he's strong, he's explosive, and still very malleable. I'm very eager to see him throw this year, and this will be kind of the first taste in a game setting.
I want to run you through some storylines in big league camp. You cool with that?
Yep, let's do it.
Let's start with, is he the consensus top prospect in baseball, Jackson Holliday?
Yeah. I think, we got through a little period of where, you could justify. I even try to get a little cute with it, just saying like, are we sure? Anytime.
Yes. Can you somehow spin this into him being two?
Not even to be a contrarian, just like everybody is on board. Like maybe this is a little bit of groupthink. I always want to try to hold myself accountable and say like, okay, am I getting sucked into groupthink? Like, let me look at this from every single angle. And dude, just looking at it from every single angle, he's a top prospect in baseball. I mean, from the youth, from what he's already doing, from what you're already starting to see him do in terms of adding more impact. I've seen a little bit more body control in terms of, the body control is already phenomenal up into the pre-swing moves and at launch, but now seeing him stay closed a little bit longer, staying on balls. And we saw that ball he hit in the gap, beating the right center gap against Zach Wheeler. And I think that was a perfect example. That's a pitch that he was probably yanking for a base hit because he's such a freak, but yanking it for a base hit, maybe between the right side last year. And now he's staying through it more and backspinning these balls. And that's scary because he's a guy that, we talk about like Isaac Paredes outslugging his EVs, certain guys like that just backspin balls and create leverage very easily. Holliday's the kind of guy that's going to outslug his EVs. But the thing is I think we're going to continue to see those EVs tick up. So it's been pretty remarkable.
So we talked about him a little bit yesterday when we were just chatting. His K rate is up in, very small sample in spring training. I think he's punched 8 times in 20 plate appearances or so.
Yeah.
Having said that, couple of doubles, couple of triples. You mentioned he's showing massive improvements in terms of backspinning balls and finding gaps. Do you think to any extent he's forcing Mike Elias's hand in getting him on the opening day roster?
I do. Because it's not just what he's doing, it's who he's doing it against. And I don't love anecdotal evidence because I do think that at the end of the day, anybody can time it up and get a good swing off against anybody. Speaking to Griff in spring training, before last year, and he got off to a horrible start last year, but it's just, I could just call to this specific example. He took Yuri like 440, right at the end of spring training in live ABs, and then sucked. He'll be the first to tell you, sucked at AA, which was his, he was already as dominated there in the past, or at least had really good numbers. So you can just kind of get a good
swing. It's a crapshoot.
Yeah. But when you start to see okay, he did it against Zach Wheeler, and then he did it against Max Castillo, who's, another big league quality arm.
And throws hard, yeah.
He's putting together good swings against, some of these other guys that are really impressive. Raisel Iglesias smokes a double off of him. At that point, then you got to start to put it together and say, okay, he's doing this against a lot of talented arms, even working an impressive walk against like Max Fried. And then you look at the Ks and it's like a lot of these Ks have been left on left. A lot of these Ks have been, tough matchups for him. AJ Minter, come on. Yeah. That's a nightmare. There's been some of those types of matchups where it's been tough for him. Matt Manning stuff's been loud this spring. That was one of the Ks. He faced Paul Skeens. He's faced just about everybody. They've been putting him through the ringer, and I think that's a little indicative of, hey, they wanted, I think, to make it difficult for him, but also make it as easy for them, because if he survives that ringer, then you feel pretty good. Right. I think with the swing and miss, that's definitely worth noting in terms of hey, he might not be ready to face some of the best lefties in Major League Baseball, but neither was Gunnar Henderson, right? Doesn't mean we keep him in the minor leagues. So I think it might be a similar scenario to what we saw with Gunnar, where there might be a little bit of growing pains left on left. Maybe not, but there might be. And, they could still justify having him at the big league level, just pillaging righties. I think he is getting close to forcing their hand.
All Skeens did not force Ben Cherington's hand. Cherington did say, what was it, on Tuesday, that Skeens will open the year in the minor leagues. And that's already happened. They're going to keep Skeens in big league camp for a little bit. It didn't happen from him being reassigned to minor league camp. It happened via a statement from the general manager saying like, hey, we're going to let this guy continue to see major league competition. He will not be on our major league roster on opening day. The Boo Birds are out on Twitter screaming service time manipulation, and this is a travesty. It's not service time manipulation. Give me your take on this, and then I'll follow and fill in the gaps. I know that we align on this pretty much perfectly.
Well, first and foremost, I'm just excited that I get to hear your gorgeous voice call a Paul Skeens start now when I tune in. So I'm excited about
He might go to Altoona. We have no idea, man. Like he made his AA debut in Strikefield, so he may go to AA for a little bit and then go to AAA and then the big leagues. We'll see what happens.
We don't know yet. What I will say is, please, and look, we are going to be as on the forefront with all of you to service time manipulation when it's a thing, and to advocate for players when it's a thing. But if we sound the alarms when it's not service time manipulation, it's like the boy who cried wolf, right? Like you're negating the argument when we do have a solid one. And not that it matters at the end of the day, but if the goal is to ultimately like try to shine the light on teams and put a little bit of pressure on when it's blatant, right? Like when it's Chris Bryant blatant. And that's the thing. Teams are a little bit afraid at times to be blatant with it. Some aren't. But there is a little bit more pressure now to not be as blatant, especially with the minor league PA. And of course, now the major league PA now advocating for minor leaguers more. There is more of an effort to not be so egregious with the service time manipulation. But that said, we can't just call everything service time manipulation. Skeens was out of gas at the end of the year last year, so we didn't really get to see him throw in the minors. Yes, Mike Leake skipped the minor leagues. I get it. Mike Leake also had a low fours, in his first season. That's not bad, but if the goal is for Paul Skeens to be the best version of himself, I think it's best for him to throw those changeups in a low impact, low pressure environment in the minor leagues and just work on it. Like so far, we've only seen him throw 3 changeups in spring training. If he gets up to the big leagues, he's going to go fight or flight. He's going to compete with that fastball, with that slider, and he's going to get outs. But if we want Paul Skeens to be the potential Cy Young candidate that, Pirates fans and the Pirates are hoping he can be, he's got to refine that changeup a little bit. He's got to refine the command a little bit. And why not have a handful of starts for him to do that in the minor leagues where it doesn't matter what the results are? Even if he misses his spots, he's still going to get whiffs instead of nibbling. Like we just had Grayson Rodriguez on the Just Baseball show, and we're asking him kind of, what the ups and downs were like for him and, what ended up clicking for him. And he said he felt like he was nibbling at the big league level. He wasn't trusting his stuff. He felt like his fastball sets the tone for him, and all of a sudden he's nibbling with that. That's a guy with, you could argue, 4+ pitches, 3 that, you could argue are plus. Like that's a guy that felt like he's nibbling. Paul Skeens just saw Ahmed Rosario take him bridge in left field on a pitch that he couldn't have located better. Like it was a well-located pitch. Little things like that, especially when the Pirates are, they're a little bit more eager to win games now. Like that can make you start to nibble more. And I think for Skeens, they don't want that. So I'm cool with it. If he's still there in May or like end of May, like early June after performing, then we'll have a new conversation about service time manipulation.
The other thing for me is, who's the last 2-pitch pitcher to win the Cy Young? Has there ever been a 2-pitch pitcher to win the Cy Young? The 2-pitch starting pitcher is a relatively new thing. When did the 2-pitch starting pitcher become a thing?
I don't know. Like, I'm sure someone listening or on the YouTube comments will say like, oh, well, this guy back this time did
back in the 90s, yeah.
When it was like more accepted and people look at him as someone that can thrive. I feel like it's been something that's been rather new. I mean, like Javier is one of the first guys that I felt like people were really discounting and saying, oh, well, how long is this going to last? How long is this going to last? Yes, he flopped a little bit last year, but I feel like in the last 5 years, it's become more of something that is accepted.
Yes.
Because I think people have realized that you can dominate with high fastball usage, but you're also going to be a little bit more susceptible, a la Spencer Strider. I don't think anyone's a better 2-pitch example than Spencer Strider. And you could argue those are 270 plus. Like those are 2 pitches that are bordering on 80. And he still can't win a Cy Young right now because he gets burned by the long ball from time to time.
That's the thing. He is considered to be making that Cy Young leap anecdotally, and the narrative around him is shifting to this guy is a Cy Young frontrunner. Why is that narrative shifting? Because you've seen the curveball flashed in spring training. You've seen the improved changeup flashed in spring training. He threw a changeup, like we saw a couple of them in the regular season last year that were amazing. And everybody was like, oh, Strider's got a changeup now. No, he threw it 4% of the time, or like 5% of the time. That's not, oh, he's got a changeup now. That is a taste breaker. Yeah. He needs a third pitch, and he's developing that third pitch. And if he can throw that taste-breaking curveball as a fourth that he uses 5% of the time, that is what elevates him to Cy Young caliber. Mm-hmm. Paul Skeens with a changeup can become Cy Young caliber. He can be really good as a two-pitch pitcher, but if he adds and perfects that quality third, that's what can make him make that jump from really good to great.
I'm with you. And I think that the fact that Strider worked this season on a curveball is a perfect example of that. Yeah, he could win a Cy Young with the two pitches if he has a year where, he just doesn't get burned by the long ball. There's a little bit of luck there, right? Where, maybe 4 or 5 balls that went out the year before don't quite get out, or you have a little bit more luck there. But there's just more volatility with that profile. It's going to be a little bit harder. And like a guy with Strider's peripherals should never have the ERA that he had, but that's what happens when you live at the top of the zone. And, guys can clip 100 with backs. It's high spin, 100 at the top of the zone. They clip it, and that thing's going to carry and go and go and go. And that's what would happen to Strider. It's not as much the case with Skeens because it's a little bit of a heavier fastball. So that's why I'm interested to see, how he utilizes that changeup. But I think it'll also allow him to be effective with the fastball at the top of the zone, because right now it's, heavier fastball, arm side run, slider that breaks horizontally, and obviously that plays better at the bottom of the zone. But now I think he can sneak that fastball up a little bit more when someone's also got to worry about something softer with similar action at the bottom of the zone. Just changes eye levels. You can't eliminate as well. And, I think just a few starts in AAA or AA, whatever it is, will be enough for him to just get that comfort and throw it in a game setting.
Yep. So Skeens is going to be throwing in spring breakout. A guy that is not on the spring breakout roster is Jared Jones. And I think I saw the note from Alex Stumpf, who's now at MLB.com. He mentioned it was either Ben Cherington or Derek Shelton. They mentioned that Jones is fully in the competition for that final starting job on opening day. He could very well be in the opening day rotation. Jared Jones hit 101 miles an hour last time he was out on the hill. And you texted me and said Jones 101. You didn't use the eye emoji, but I figured that you were going to use the eye emoji, or at least you were thinking about it. That's a new level that we've never seen before from this guy. How much more does that sell you on his presence on opening day on that roster?
It does for sure, because, we talk about a guy that's, he has tried to mix in a curveball a little bit more. Those two breaking balls can blend together. At the end of the day, Jones is going to dominate with a fastball and a slider. And yes. Tying back to the conversation, Jones is not going to be competing most likely for Cy Youngs. So no. This is a guy that we're hoping is a really good 3. Maybe I think now is elevating towards the ceiling of a really good 2. And now if his fastball is up to 101, and I know it's short spurts, but I don't think we ever really knew that he could get up to 101. The thing is, I look at the fastball. How many ways can you be? How many ways can you stray from the norm? And he already strayed from the norm with release height. He already strayed from the norm with vertical movement from that release height and vertical attack angle. He also strayed from the norm subtly, like slightly, I think by 0.2, 0.3 feet, a little bit more extension. So you have across the board already straying from the norm. The velocity was already higher than the average as well. So this was already a fastball that was an easy 70. But now you get that another tick or two higher. We'll see if he sustains it as the season goes on and things like that. But if he's able to sustain another tick or two on the fastball, that could be one of the better fastballs in Major League Baseball with the characteristics that he has. So, it changes a lot because I think that was kind of you're not going to get more vert at this point. You're not going to change your release height. You're not going to get, change your extension much because his mechanics are good. Like you've seen it first and, up close in person. So if the velocity ticks up a little bit more, this is a strong 70 fastball now. And that's scary. I mean, he can dominate with that. And, we'll see how the curveball works for him this year. But that fastball and slider can make him a 3. It's a little bit different than the situation with Skeens because, you want him to develop into what he can be, which is one of the best pitchers in baseball. But I think Jared Jones can help them right now. And he's already had a little bit more confidence throwing that curveball in spring training and mixing that in. He's even thrown a few changeups.
And Skeens said it himself. He said, I've thrown 6 2/3 innings in professional baseball. It is what it is. Jared Jones had over 100 innings between Double A and Triple A last year. So these guys are at different levels of their progression, albeit they're pretty close to the same age. Jones is 6 foot at most. He's skinny. I have no idea where 100 miles an hour comes from. But you've heard the conversation with him. Like he's clearly a guy that pitches with anger in a good way. And he controls fire, and he like allocates all of it towards the catcher's mitt. And Godspeed to him, man. If that guy's throwing 101, I think he can be electric. And I don't use the word electric about many starting pitchers in baseball, but electricity stems from the fastball. You call a good breaking ball guy filthy, you call a good fastball guy electric, and I think that guy can truly be electric.
18 inches, 17 and a half inches of vert from a 5.5 release height, and now you're flirting with triple digits.
Yeah.
That's electric.
Yeah. Couple of bats that I want to run by you in the Guardians organization. I want to start with Chase DeLauter because he's generated a lot of buzz, and we talked about, Jeff Passan making a note that he thought he could be an opening day roster candidate. You don't think that's the case? I don't think that's the case personally. Like, as someone that is somewhat uninformed, I'm like, no. I mean, he spent the year in high A last year, but Chase DeLauter's hitting the crap out of the ball right now.
Yeah, and Passan's as good as they. I mean, he's the best of the best right now, and him and Rosenthal, we talked about, are the best of the best. And there's so many good scoops in there, and I honestly think that it was just I think he was just going through it all and saw a Double A guy, and there was scoops on the Merrill aspect of that where he's saying yes, a strong chance to make the team. I think it was kind of a throwaway line on DeLauter. At the end of the snippet, like at the end of the paragraph, he said could force his way to the opening day roster. They just traded for Florial. And I'm not saying he's going to block DeLauter, but they go out and get Florial. The outfield's already pretty crowded now of guys that they got to figure out, what they've got. Again, none of these guys are going to block DeLauter once he, matriculates to the big leagues, but he's got to miss a lot of time. And there's a reason why he was in the fall league. And I do think that he could get up this year, especially for a Guardians team that's, serious about winning ball games. And we just talked to Stephen Kwan and Tanner Bybee. They feel really good about, what they've got with this ball club. And they're definitely confident going into the season. The whole ball club is. And I think the front office is too. So, they're going to want to compete. And I think DeLauter will get up before the end of the year. But yeah, I don't think he's necessarily competing for an opening day spot. And I think if he was, we'd see him playing more. I mean, he has 13 plate appearances thus far. So yeah, Holliday's getting a little bit more run. And I think that's because he's got a legitimate chance. But that said, we've already seen DeLauter hit 2 balls 112 miles an hour. That is a big deal. Because, and again, I don't like the small sample size theater, but that's a big deal because there's monster power there. Like that's just all we need to know. It's like, okay, there's a lot of juice in there. The field to hit is good, but now we're seeing that kind of power. If he can continue to elevate consistently, he could be a monster. But I think this is just more of a reminder of flashes of what can be, and a guy that could end up now expediting his process to the big leagues. But I don't think he's getting there on opening day. That just wouldn't make sense just yet.
I think one guy that does have an outside chance of the opening day roster for Cleveland is Angel Martinez. And Angel Martinez has taken a lot of headlines over in the Cleveland area because he has gone yard twice, I think, but he's just hitting the crap out of the ball at all times. He's not striking out, which is fascinating considering the K rate went up drastically in 2023. This guy was the next Rocchio and Tena and Bracho and Tyler Freeman. Like all these guys kind of came up, and when they got to AAA and were somewhat stalling out, Angel Martinez in 2022 blew up in high A and double A. And then in double A and triple A in 2023, he disappointed. Spring training 2024, this guy looks like the Angel Martinez of 2022. And I look at it situationally. Brian Rocchio has been the appointed heir at shortstop for the Cleveland Guardians for the last 2 years. He hasn't taken the job and run with it yet. And he's gotten ample opportunities to prove that he is that guy. We've been saying, I don't get why Rocchio's in AAA. I don't get why Rocchio's in AAA. If he was ready to be an everyday big league shortstop, he'd be there by now. And the reality is, he got 100-something plate appearances last year, maybe a little bit fewer than 100-something plate appearances for the Guardians. He OPS'd like 600. Andres Jimenez has been getting reps at shortstop.
I was about to say
if they, The best version of the Guardians opening day middle infield may look like Andres Gimenez at short and Angel Martinez at second. That may be the premier offensive output you get from any assortment of the middle infielders that they have, and they still have a gluttony of tweeners.
Yep. And I honestly think, because I was not really, it's an interesting spot because you want Roquillo at shortstop if he's up there because he's a phenomenal defender, right? And then that's what really makes him the highly regarded prospect that he is. But very highly regarded by some. But it definitely a safe and solid prospect. I think when you look at what the Guardians are looking for this year, and what's interesting is, again, just kind of calling back to that conversation we had on the Just Baseball show with Stephen Kwan and Tanner Bybee. Kwan was talking about how the team is making a concerted effort to do more damage this year. They understand that, yes, we're built on contact. We don't want to undermine that. But, the energy and the attitude has been leverage our hitters' counts better and try to let it fly a little bit more and do some more damage. And I think Martinez has the ability to do more damage for them than a Roquillo. I don't know how comfortable they are moving Gimenez to shortstop. I think it might work better because you're already paying that guy a ton. And he's a guy that's, I think he's gonna be able to pick it at short. I don't think he's a phenomenal defensive second baseman. If he's similar offensively and is able to play, really good defense at shortstop, then you can justify the expenditure a little bit more. But I think he's also more valuable to you. And and Martinez, he's going to be a better offensive piece, I think, than what you're going to get from Roquillo. I think that's fairly clear. And I see a tangible adjustment offensively. Last year, you mentioned the strikeout rate. He really struggled to be in sync with his lower half. He started more in his base, and I think he felt as if that would make it easier to stay there. But when you start there, sometimes it's harder because you have to be there longer. Now he's more upright, and he sinks into it, and he actually holds it better that way. So you're seeing a guy that you look at some of the swings from spring training, he's shooting the ball the other way with authority and generating loft that way. Whereas last year, I felt like it was a lot of out on the front foot, a lot of drifting forward. He's starting more upright now, getting to a hitting position, and just seems like he's able to hold it there and be more comfortable there. And I think the results are very clear that he has just been able to do more damage and also just seems more comfortable and more on time. And we're looking at a guy that, it's a small sample, but he's barely swung and missed this entire time. The only balls he's swung and missed at so far is, I think, one splitter. I think one splitter is the only thing he's swung and missed at so far. Huh. And we're seeing him drive the ball to all fields now with some authority. This could be a better offensive option for the Guardians if they believe that, Gimenez can play good enough defense that would be comparable to a Roquillo. And, they seem to be focused on the offensive side. So this could make sense.
Here's the thing, man. And real quick, I loved that note from Stephen Kwan. I saw that we had a clip of it and we put it out on social media on the Just Baseball show social channels. He said, and I'm blanking, I think it was the hitting coach in Cleveland, said, better to be 0-1 than 0-4-1.
Yep.
This year. And I love that line of thinking because weak contact in an 0-0 count. What are we doing here? That is the new school approach. And we loved the Guardians because they were throwback, but they were leaving something on the table offensively as a team and as a cohesive unit. And that may go a long way in correcting it. Real quick on Gimenez. This guy played 180 innings at short in 2020, then 320 in 2021 with Cleveland, and 130 in 2022. He is an elite defensive second baseman. Last year, 1,300 innings at second, 23 defensive runs saved, 18 outs above average. Like, you don't find better numbers than that. And that's why this guy was still like a 4-win player, even though he was a 95 WRC plus guy last year. But Andres Gimenez in 630 innings at short in his career, 7 defensive runs saved, 8 outs above average.
Gee, that'll play. And at shortstop, you're going to accumulate similar, if not better, WAR, just because you're playing shortstop. And he can get better and better there, too. He's young. So I think that might be the move. I think at this point, we're seeing a Roquillo that I don't know what it is. He just can't seem to grab the job, and he can't seem to really, I think, convince them to give it to him either. So it's a unique spot. And I think just looking at what we're starting to hear from what the Guardians' approach is, Roquillo's back into that, put the ball. Yeah, I don't think
Man out.
do a lot of damage, a lot of defense, draw some walks, I guess, here and there and not strike out. Whereas, I'm not saying Martinez is going to hit you 30 jacks, but there's a little bit more thump there, a little bit more offensive upside. He's also a switch hitter. I'm very curious to see how this all plays out, but Martinez is making it a conversation, and also he's getting more run. We talk about how much run these guys are getting, kind of being the team's tipping their hands a little bit to who they're strongly considering. Martinez is right at 20 plate appearances, and 5-6 plate appearances this early in the spring is a pretty decent difference in terms of who they're prioritizing.
Yeah, 100%. It does feel like an open competition between Martinez, Rocchio, Tena, and Freeman for that second middle infield spot. And, if we are going to look at a battle, it feels like Martinez is winning. Last hitter that I want to go over with you in two pitchers to wrap that do have big league experience. The hitter is Owen Caissie with the Cubs. And Owen Caissie is killing right now. I think I mentioned it to you when I saw that he was a non-roster invite, when we kind of flew through the non-roster invitees, that this guy could make a play for a DH job if all went according to plan. He's going to be in Iowa, but he could be a quick call-up, man, with the way that he's hitting Major League pitching right now.
Yeah, and he's the kind of guy that can, if you need a shot in the butt, he could do that for your offense because of the kind of power that he has. But what's really standing out to me is the plate discipline as well. I got to see him out there in Arizona, and just so much comfort out there. And I saw a 2-strike swing where it flicks a breaking ball the other way and dumps it into shallow left field. Like, that was the thing that we're kind of curious about with Caissie, right? Is we know he's got the monstrous power. Can he limit the Ks? Can he improve the swing decisions, which he did as the year went on and became a pretty selective hitter? And is he someone that's going to be able to keep the strikeout rate under 30%? We'll see. But so far this spring, the dude's 10 for 20. So he's doing damage, but he's also putting bat on ball. And you can tell that was a concerted effort for him. I think we're also seeing the entire industry finally come around to Caissie over Alcantara, which is not a slight on Alcantara at all. For a long time, I was saying both these guys got to hit. I know Alcantara is more athletic, but either way, they got to hit to be successful. And what Caissie's doing is just on another level. And I think it's cool to see the entire industry now pretty much have him as a top 50 prospect because he is one. And I think you'll see. We're not pushing him any higher, that much higher in our top 100, for 2024 because we already had him at 29 at the end of the season last year. So I can't really reasonably push him much higher. But, that's because I'm not going to say we knew he could hit 500, but that's because we knew that he's a guy that is one of the most talented bats in the minor leagues. And then now we're seeing it. So if you wonder why he doesn't make a huge leap, it's because we've expected Caissie to be this kind of guy. And I think I am a little bit more floored by the B swings, though. Again, he kind of had one swing that we would see, which is okay. Kyle Schwarber kind of has one swing. And that's kind of the comment that I was always kind of given was, okay, yeah, it's a little different than Schwarber, but it's a similar level of production that I think you could ultimately find if the hit tool doesn't come along. But now we're seeing these B swings where he's flicking balls the other way, where he's a little fooled and he's staying through it and driving it up the middle. I'm like, all right, well, if he's doing a little bit of that, then this guy could be a problem.
100%. One more thing on Caissie. I think the overwhelming concern with a guy like that is that, he could hit 220. And that best case scenario is he hits 240 with a bunch of homers and whiff. He was flirting with 300 last year in AA with, half a season of tack ball. He hit 289 when he was dealing with a chemically enhanced baseball for the first 3 months of the year.
Yeah.
He can hit 260 at the major league level. Yeah. And the difference between 235 and 265 is everything for a power hitter. 235 for a power hitter, you start to totally fall into that 3 true outcome thing. 265 for a power hitter is, this guy's prolific, this guy is a bona fide middle of the order master, and he should be considered for all-star games.
And if you look at the contact rates, I'm glad you brought that point up. The contact rates are more than palatable. There's a lot of players who strike out less with more in-zone whiff and more just in lower contact rates overall. So I felt like a little bit of it was just the tax ball in the first half of the season. And we saw that strikeout rate dip, under 30% after the tax ball. He's going to be a guy that's still going to whiff, obviously, but if it's 25, to 28%, that's palatable, especially when you offset that with a 15% walk rate roughly. And beyond that, you mentioned it, like the contact rates are good enough where I do think he can, hover in the mid 200s because of how hard he hits the ball too. He's always going to be a high BABIP guy, and he hits a lot of line drives. I talk about him so much on this show already, but I couldn't be more in, especially after the spring.
Two arms to wrap. First one that I want to talk about is AJ Smith-Shawver with the Atlanta Braves, who has flashed a good changeup in his first couple of innings of spring ball. And again, that's a guy who was a two-pitch guy and was flying through the minor leagues and got to the big leagues and, showed flashes in the pan, but he was not good enough to be a consistent piece. Just watch Masataka Yoshida take Bryce Elder deep. I watched him miss way up and out to Jarren Duran. Granted, Duran bailed him out with the chase. But man, I think AJ Smith-Shawver, if he shows that he's got this good feel for the changeup across 20 innings in the spring, why is he not the 5? That would probably be a better option as a 5 if AJ is throwing well and Elder continues to look like second half Elder as opposed to first half Elder.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that believe that people have become too harsh on Elder's second half and that there's some ability there, and he was also battling some ailments and things like that. But I also am pretty concerned about what we saw from the second half because I don't know if what he did in the first half was sustainable. And I think most people would reasonably say he's somewhere in between. I don't even know. And I think, maybe they start Smith-Shawver in AAA to give Elder a few starts. And if Elder struggles, then Smith-Shawver is the first man up. But I'm glad you pinpointed on the changeup because that was a pitch he only threw 6% of the time last year. His two breaking balls were the slider and the curveball were the pitches that he got a lot of swing and miss with. And those were kind of his put away pitches. His fastballs.
It's what got him to the big leagues.
Yeah, exactly. And now, the breaking ball is going to be there. In a small sample, it hasn't been there. Both of them haven't been there as much, but he's been filling up the zone with the slider and the changeup. He's made a concerted effort not only to improve it, but he's throwing it more than any other pitch. Like you can tell he's working on something out there. So, you can talk about guys competing for a role, but he's throwing 21 changeups as opposed to 25 breaking balls combined. So it's 14 sliders, 11 curveballs. So, that's total change in usage. We're talking about in a small sample here, 25% usage versus 6. And you mentioned it, he's turned over some really good ones. They look nasty. So assuming the breaking balls are where they were last year, that changeup comes along and the fastball is, where we've seen it be. That's a guy that can be a middle rotation arm as he continues to develop. He's 21 years old. He will be 21 for the entirety of the year. Do not let the fast tracking and the way that he was handled skew your perspective on him. He's like the pitching version of CJ Abrams, I think. And, so that
you know what he is? He's the pitching version of Vaughn Grissom. They just did it a year later.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a perfect example. So, we'll see what they do, but I'll say the changeup does change things. And I'm excited to see because even if he starts in trips, I don't think it'll be long.
No. Last guy that I want to talk about is someone that has graduated from prospect status, but it's another Guardian. It's right hitter Gavin Williams. And Gavin Williams has been pinpoint so far this year. I think it's 4 2/3, maybe 5 innings, 9 punch-outs, 1 walk. Gavin is a guy that fell behind Bybee, and you could argue fell behind Logan Allen on the pecking order. And you could really view Gavin Williams as the 5 coming into this year in Cleveland. He's going to be in the opening day rotation. Everybody, understandably so, had Gavin Williams penciled in as like possible future ace of the Cleveland Guardians before his major league debut. I saw this cat in AAA. He was amazing. He might have been a guy that was nibbling a little bit with a limited pitch mix in his first taste of Major League Baseball. If I have to pick a breakout arm in the AL Central, it might be this guy. Hunter Brown is my overall breakout arm in the American League this year, maybe in all of Major League Baseball. Gavin Williams is not far behind, man. If this guy throws with confidence, he can run it up to 101 miles an hour. He can snap off a crazy, crazy slider. And right now, he looks more confident than he did at any point last year in a Guardians uniform. Not in an Akron uniform, not in a Columbus uniform, in a Cleveland Guardians uniform. This is a different looking Gavin Williams.
And it's funny because I think he kind of ended the season, though, with some good momentum. If you take away, I love playing this game, but if you take away the blow-up start against the Dodgers, his last 7 appearances of the season, and one of them was a 1-inning spurt against the Twins, but I'll take that. So his last 6 starts of the season, a 2.38 ERA, 34 innings, 39 Ks, at 182 opponent batting average. And yeah, you are right though. Like there was a little bit of reliance on the fastball and slider. If you look at the pitch usage, it was 2/3 of what he was throwing. More than that, honestly, like 3/4 of what he was throwing was going to be fastball slider. And that's okay, because we talked about it, like that can make you a solid middle rotation arm. But the Gavin Williams you saw, and the Gavin Williams that we've talked about, is a guy that could be number 2, and a really solid one at that. And I think we're seeing a little bit more confidence in the curveball. He sprinkled in a little bit, with the changeups. But you mentioned pinpoint. He is spotting that slider wherever he wants. So if you're going to be heavily reliant on 2 pitches, you got to be able to spot them. And he is spotting that slider at 90 to 92 miles an hour, which, that's going to be a problem for hitters. So I feel good about the floor, but if he mixes in that curveball and maybe even that changeup a little bit more, I feel good about the ceiling too.
This is my favorite thing about Gavin Williams. I think you probably left last year. Give me your honest assessment. So Bibee should be considered the best of that trio after what he did last year. He was second in AL Rookie of the Year voting, right? You came away most positive with Tanner Bibee's performance.
Yes.
Based on expectations, I bet you were more positive about Logan Allen's 2023 season than Gavin Williams' 2023 season. No?
No doubt. And
I think everybody was.
He's always been a guy that has some intriguing, characteristics, especially with the release side, the fastball, and you can mix in like the sinker and a splitter, and he's tough, but he's also a guy that, you wonder if he's gonna be able to miss enough bats. 100%, you got to come away most encouraged by what we saw from Logan Allen. That's a guy that was not even, by some considered like in the top 10 in that system, and operates more in the low 90s, but seems like a shoe-in to just kind of anchor the back end of that rotation, eat innings for them. And I'm excited to see what he continues to do, because you just need guys like that. You need safe arms in the back end, because Williams, Bibee, those guys can be 3s, 2s maybe. You got a lot of talent there. We know McKenzie's awesome, but volatile.
Oh, yeah.
I love the idea. And, of course, Bieber's battling injuries, but when he's healthy, he's Bieber. I love the idea of having just a lefty that can eat innings, give you a chance to win almost every time he's out there. And even his bad starts, it's like, all right, 4 or 5 innings of 3-run ball, you still have a chance. And that's what it feels like Logan Allen.
That's the thing. Because of Allen's performance relative to expectations and Bibee's performance relative to expectations, and with the expectations having been so high for Gavin Williams, we come away with Gavin Williams almost being the forgotten man. Yeah. Might I remind you that Gavin Williams in 60 1/3 innings in the minor leagues last year had a 2.4 ERA, and in 82 innings, do you have it in front of you? Don't get it in front of you. Don't do it.
Okay.
80 2/3 innings, or 82 innings in the major leagues for Gavin Williams. What do you think this guy's ERA was?
In the 82 innings?
In the 82 major league innings that he got under his belt.
If I remember correctly, like a mid-3s.
He had a 3.29 ERA.
Better than I thought. Yeah.
So like, how can a guy with a 3.2 in his first 82 major league innings be a forgotten man? Because everybody else was so positive. Yeah. Everybody else drastically exceeded expectations. We had such high expectations for him. It's the O'Neal Cruz thing. O'Neal Cruz has looked really good in his last 60, 70, 80 major league games. He got off to a rough start. He's been hurt. I love Foolish Baseball's tweet about O'Neal Cruz. Because of Ellie's ascension, everybody's forgetting how freaking good at baseball O'Neal Cruz is. Everybody's forgetting how good at pitching Gavin Williams is. And I'm very excited for people to remember this year.
Yeah, he's in that weird, like, twilight in-between zone where he graduated as a prospect and did well, but you mentioned kind of buried on his own team. If he was still a prospect, everybody would be shoving him up really high because of the numbers and because of, intangibles. He's 6'6" also in terms of just the tangibles, the physical stuff. So it's interesting, but I think you hit the nail on the head. This is a young gun that could make a leap this year.
Yeah, that's what I got.
That'll do it for today's episode. So we got a lot of fun stuff coming up next week. Everything from being able to put together these continued interviews with some of the best young prospects in baseball. It feels like we interviewed like 15% of our top 100 list. which is really fun. So everything from Dylan Lesko talking about his arsenal and some things that he was working on this offseason that I think you'll find very interesting. Snelling basically saying he sleeps with a changeup grip. There's just a lot of fun conversations there that I think you'll enjoy. Also, keep an eye out. We continue to finalize each portion of the top 100. We're getting there. So that will be out very, very soon. I've been seeing some questions about that. But yeah, very excited about the content that we have coming out in the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, we will be coming at you live from Spring Breakout, recaps, takeaways, putting out some content on the YouTube. Keep up with us on Twitter as well, because we'll be tweeting videos from each of these games and keeping you posted on what's going on. But that'll do it. We will talk to you next week. Have a great weekend and look forward to it.